Welcome everyone! In this video, we are going to be diving into my top 5 best teams for the Single Type Cup. This is a brand new cup introduced with Season 15 of Go Battle League. It's looking to be quite interesting. We've never had a meta like this. So as the name implies, only Pokemon that have a single typing are allowed. It takes place at the Great League format, which is 1500 CP or less. And there are only 2 bans for this cup, and that being Defense Form Deoxys and Cresselia. Those 2 Pokemon are not allowed, but anything else is free reign and is a go. So very interesting cup. It's one that I was quite excited for. It does seem to be a bit fighting heavy. A lot of fighters and pseudo fighter if you lump Vigoroth in there, but that is okay. There are some very strong counters to those fighters. And we've got some very strong teams to get you on the right foot for this brand new single type cup in Pokemon Go Battle League. So without further ado, let's dive right into team number 1. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 1 for the single type cup. And it is a very strong one. We've got Shadow Machamp on the lead, Cofagrigus on the safe swap, and Hypno in the back to close strong for you. So, as we all know, for those of us who are on PvPoke quite regularly, Shadow Machamp is going to be an absolute monster as expected in this meta. If you don't have the Shadow, the next best thing would be the non-Shadow, followed by Surfetched, Machoke, or Primeape. Any one of those will be good replacements if you don't have a Shadow Machamp. But Hypno and Cofagrigus, those are not replaceable, unfortunately. So, yeah, the idea behind this team, this particular team, with all the fighters in the meta, we are basically protecting our Shadow Machamp from opposing counter users, because Hypno and Cofagrigus are looking to be 2 of the better anti-fighters in the meta. Quite bulky as well. We wanted to back Machamp up with some bulk because you are going to want to be shielding Shadow Machamp, and we'll dive into why. So let's have a look at the scorecard here. And look at that, guys. That is an amazing scorecard. Shadow Machamp does have a tendency to bring a bulk score down, again, which is why you'll want to prioritize those shields for Machamp. But that aside, we get a strong, powerful A for coverage. We do get that C for bulk, B for safety, and an A for consistency. Very, very strong scorecard for Team 1 here. Let's have a look at these matchups here at the bottom. So, Machamp on the lead is going to be dominating just about everything in the meta. And actually, for perspective, let's go right on back up to the top here. And if you're unfamiliar with this advanced tab, this allows you to filter through certain aspects of PvPoke. So what we're going to do here is actually, in the shields, we're going to put this on the 2s because we want to look at Machamp's matchups on the lead, and that is where all battles begin. So as you can see, the scorecard doesn't change a whole lot. Everything remains the same with the exception of the coverage. That goes down from an A to a B, which is absolutely fine. But if we look now, the matchups for Machamp on the lead look a lot more dominant, and that is more accurate because all battles begin in the 2s. So we want to look at the 2s for Machamp in order to get our strategy right here. So we want to know what we're hard swapping out on. That's pretty obvious, I think. We're going to be hard swapping out on any XL Wobbuffets. I'm sure we are going to be seeing them. People do have them built, guys, so be prepared for that. Dragonair is going to be a little bit dicey. That is the major core breaker for the team, starting out in the 2s. The reason why is because Machamp does outpace, but Dragonair, if it's in a fresh matchup against Shadow Machamp, the Dragon Breath fast move pressure really does add up. So what you'll want to do, because you do outpace on Dragonair, is look to get off that cross chop and then make an immediate swap into your Cofagrigus. You will undoubtedly grab a shield because their play is to just Dragon Breath you down and play out the 2s. So you get that early shield advantage, go into Cofagrigus, force them to swap, and try and mix it up that way. You're not shielding Hypno or Cofagrigus whatsoever. All of the shields go to Machamp. That's how this team is designed. You shield Machamp your way to victory. That is the mantra for Team 1 here. Cofagrigus, you're out of there. Well, no, actually, Cofagrigus is another issue. Maybe even more of an issue than Dragonair, because it dominates all three of these Pokemon, with the exception of your own Cofagrigus. That's kind of a 50-50 toss-up. So the way you'll want to play that out is you're gonna have to play out the ones. I would imagine they're gonna want to get your shield back. So what you'll want to do is play to that CMP tie to your Rock Slide and either do big damage, massive damage to a Cofagrigus on the lead, or grab an early shield. If they look to CMP, you're going to have to shield that Shadow Ball and then look to go into your own Cofagrigus and mix it up from there. Again, you're not shielding anything. If you can grab that final shield, that's even better if they do decide to stay in, but you'll have to see what comes of that. That's the best way to play out a Cofagrigus lead. It takes a team effort. Let's see here. Muck, that's another one that is you're not staying in there on that. It might be tempting to try and get off that heavy damage on it. Heavy resisted damage, I must say, but that's not one you'll want to stay in on. You've got two excellent answers to Muck in Cofagrigus and Hypno. So you're still going into Cofagrigus, despite it saying that you lose that, because you can still put in work. You are resisting that vast move pressure. So go into Cofagrigus and look to play that out. And then Hypno, you've got... so with that one, you generally don't want to go into your hardest answer, but you don't want to come in with your own Hypno at an energy disadvantage. So this is one of the exceptions where I would immediately go into Cofagrigus, which is your hardest answer, because you're going to force that swap. That's what you want to do. By forcing swap, you're able to mix things up, grab shields, or get energy leads. That's the best way to approach that. That's one of the rare circumstances where I would recommend hard swapping. That will force that Hypno out of there, and then you can mix it up and go on from there. But everything else in between, as you can see, you even have a very narrow victory over Clefable of all Pokemon. That's the power of Shadow Machamp in this meta with 2 shields, guys. It's going to be next to Unstoppable. There are a few Pokemon that can handle it, though, and those are the ones that we have strategized for here. Everything else, you're 2-shielding Machamp your way to victory. The other 2 Pokemon in the back, being Cofagrigus and Hypno, are quite bulky and perform quite well when shields are down. So that is team number 1. Shadow Machamp on the lead, Cofagrigus on the safe swap, and Hypno in the back to close strong. So with all that said, that's team 1. Let's have a look at team number 2. All right, guys, moving right along to team number 2 here. Another very powerful team for the single type cup. It leads with Shadow Machamp, my goodness. Can you tell I've been looking at Shadow Machamp a lot, guys, with my analysis? Holy smokes. But Shadow Muck, excuse me, far from a Shadow Machamp. Shadow Muck on the lead, Lickitung on the safe swap, and Umbreon in the back. So this team is designed to get ahead of all of the fairy leads that we are undoubtedly going to see in response to all the fighting leads, while also being able to handle those fighting leads as well. That's the value in Muck in this meta. Again, if you don't have a Shadow Muck, you can use the regular one, that's fine. Or for any of you mad lads that have already gone ahead and built a Shadow Grimer, you can use that too. But Shadow Muck is a nice happy medium there. But those are the 2 best replacements if you don't have one. And yeah, so again, this team is going to be quite strong, quite versatile in terms of winning lead a lot, because you're going to see either a lot of fighters on the lead or a lot of fairies in response to the fighting type leads. And that's where Muck can beat both of those and win lead a lot more often than not. So, and we've got these 2 in the back are going to be protecting Muck from any confusion users that you may see, most notably Hypno. So let's have a look here. The Ghost type as well, Cofagrigus. So that's the scorecard. Not bad. Very strong scorecard. We get a B for coverage, A for bulk, C for safety, and an A for consistency. That is not bad at all. And again, I want to hammer home the coverage on Muck on the lead. So you're protecting it from Hypno and Cofagrigus, which we're going to be seeing a lot of. So very, very well-rounded team, sort of ABB style. Licky is going to be on the safe swap to draw out any potential fighters that may be lurking in the back, to perhaps free the way for Umbreon to do something for you. So these are the matchups here. We've got Muck on the lead. Reggie Steele is going to be a massive team effort. You do tank a Zap Cannon from full health. It does about just shy of 70%, about 69% of your health. But you'll want to chip that thing. I'm not sure if it's wise to tank that Zap Cannon. The best play would be to try and catch it on Licky and look to play on from there, as Muck is going to be your least bulky Pokemon. You could always shield that because a Reggie lead may have either 2 fighters or 2 fairies in the back. That is what you'll most commonly see behind a Reggie lead. So you'll want to perhaps preserve some health based upon your team read. So shielding that might not be a bad idea as well. Ideally, you'll want to catch the Zap Cannon onto Licky and look to play on from there. And that will, if it is double fairy, you will draw out that fairy, and then you can just come back in with Muck, really load up and farm that thing down before it can even get to a move, and then you'll have energy to threaten that Reggie when it comes back in. And then you rinse and repeat. You try to catch that next one onto Umbreon. That's the best way to tackle a Reggie lead. Dragonair is another one where, sort of like with Shadow Machamp, the Dragon Breath fast move pressure is just a little much. I would say throw 5 poison jabs, then go into Licky. That's what I would do. You'll want to get that nice oppressive poison jab damage in so that Licky can come in at a health advantage, because as we can see, Licky loses a fresh fight narrowly in the 2s, but you're not going to be playing the 2s. Again, much like with Team 1, the shielding priority goes to Muck. So that's how I would play Dragonair. Throw 5 poison jabs and then go into Licky. What else here do we have? Umbreon. Umbreon's another tricky one. That's one where you can stay in a little bit. Tank the first move, get off your Thunder Punch, and then look to go into Licky. That's not one that you'll want to stay in for the long haul, but that's one lead loss that you can stay in and really try and whittle Umbreon down a little bit before getting out of there. And the same goes for an opposing Lickitung matchup. I would play that the same ways with Umbreon, and then you'll go into your own Licky for the mirror at a health advantage. Other than that, as we can see, Shadow Muck does win lead quite a bit, so you're not going to have to worry about swapping out too often. So that is Team 2 here. Very strong team. Shadow Muck on the lead, Lickitung on the safe swap, and Umbreon in the back to bring it home for you. So that is Team 2, and with all that said, let's have a look at Team number 3. All right, guys, making our way to Team number 3. Another pretty solid team for the Single Type Cup. It leads with Coffer on the lead, Shadow Machamp on the safe swap, and Haxorus fresh off of its Community Day in the back to close with a shield advantage, and we'll dive into that in just a moment. So Coffer, I've had my eye on this thing from the very beginning, the very beginning, when we first got caught wind of the Single Type Cup being a thing. I immediately thought Coffer, especially seeing that Deoxys and Cresselia. I don't know why they banned those, because Coffer is an amazing answer to those two, but the point is that I've had my mind on Coffer. I've had my eye on it just because I know that it has an amazing stat product and it is quite powerful. Really able to apply heavy shield pressure on just about anything in the meta, which is good because you'll want Haxorus to sweep with a shield advantage. That's how the team is designed. Let's have a look at the scorecard here. So there is a glaring F in terms of bulk, and that is to be expected when you have Shadow Machamp and Haxorus on the same team. This is a pretty, I would say, almost advanced team, a very high intermediate to advanced team. It'd take a lot of patience and finesse. If you're new to Pokemon Go Battle League, you might want to try one of the other 4 teams. But if you're seasoned, skilled, you know what you're doing on the Pokemon Go battlefield, you might want to give this one a try. It's going to be quite powerful, very high octane. But we do get an A for coverage. Get that nasty F for bulk. Again, that's to be expected. We've got 2 very squishy Pokemon on this team, but they hit very hard, which means that things are not going to be lasting very long. B for safety and an A for consistency. So let's have a look at these matchups here. So the dynamics of this team, any lead loss, you're going into Machamp. You're not shielding Machamp. You are just pressuring those shields. You're getting those shields down. Again, Cofagrigus is also very good at getting shields down, which sets up Haxorus up shields to absolutely sweep the game. The goal is to draw out a fairy, if at all possible, if they have it in the back. Maybe even a Hypno. It would be even better if you draw out a Hypno, because then Cofagrigus will have a better time up against the Hypno coming back in, but it can handle a fairy as well. But you want to draw that fairy out so the Haxorus doesn't have to deal with it to sweep, sort of ABB style, if you will. But yeah, you're going to be winning lead a lot here. Meganium's going to be a bit tricky, but you can play it out a little bit, tank that first Frenzy, and then go into Machamp. That way Machamp comes in at a significant health advantage, and you will outpace to the cross drop if they decide to stay in. Any normal type, yeah, you're out of there. Umbreon, you're out of there. And opposing Cofagrigus, that's one where you're just going to have to play out the zeros, perhaps even grab a shield advantage, because if you can do that, you can actually look to come in with your own Haxorus, and by then, depending on where their health is, a Night Slash will easily dispatch of what's left of the Cofagrigus if you happen to lose lead. But that's one where you're not shielding as well. You're playing out the zeros. You do, I do believe you narrowly survive a Shadow Ball from an opposing Cofagrigus, but they'll likely bait you, saying that you want to stay in. And you definitely live a Dark Pulse. Ninetales, the Kanto Ninetales, that's a lead loss. The Ember fast move pressure is just a little bit oppressive, and they do outpace you. So that's one that you can comfortably hard swap out into Machamp and see what comes of that for you. But again, the dynamics of this team, you save those shields for Haxorus to sweep. Machamp is on this team to draw out something that Haxorus doesn't want to see. That way Cofagrigus can come in, take it out, and allow for Haxorus to sweep the game. That is basically it for this one here. It's pretty simple, yet quite effective and powerful. You've got two very heavy hitters in the back. Two Pokemon that are very good at grabbing shields, that being Cofagrigus and Machamp, which will set up Haxorus to sweep with a shield advantage. So that is Team 3 here. And with all that said, let's have a look at Team number 4. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 4. Another pretty solid team for the Single-Type Cup. It leads with Shadow Machamp yet again on the lead. Shadow Muck on the safe swap, and Registeel in the back to close the game strong. So the dynamics of this team is much like with Team 1. Instead of protecting our Shadow Machamp lead from opposing counter users, we're actually protecting it more so from the fairies. So if you're seeing a lot of fairy leads in your elo in the single cup, you might want to keep this team in mind. Because we've got two fairy answers in the back here. But the dynamics are very similar to Team 1. Let's have a look at the scorecard. So a very solid scorecard yet again for a team leading Shadow Machamp. We get an A for coverage, C for bulk, B for safety, and a B for consistency. So let's have a look at the matchups here. Again, pretty dominant. So this is so we're back at the amalgamation of the 1s and 2s. That's an average of the 1 and 2s. So let's, for the sake of ease for you guys, let's have a look at the 2s, because that's where it's going to start with Machamp. Not a whole lot has changed really with the scorecard there. Again, everything stays the same. The only difference in the 2s is you go down from a average coverage from an A to a B. Not a big deal. So there, as we can see, very much dominant for Machamp on the lead, much like with team number 1. So it's going to be playing quite similarly. The only problems with this team as opposed to team 1 is a Hypno lead. That's going to be the biggest obstacle for you, as you've got two Pokemon that are very weak to Hypno on this team. The most logical way I would say to play that out is you just soft lose lead and you come in with Reggie and look to go on from there, because you can't come in with Muck. And you can't immediately come in with Reggie, because you're not getting anything in return. Hypno could just sweep. So you want to at least get a shield or do some damage with a Rock Slide. That's the best bet with a Hypno lead. Coffer is actually a little bit different. If they let your Rock Slide go, you can comfortably shield their Shadow Ball and get out of there into Muck, because that's a lot of damage for a even a Coffer to tank. And then you can come in with Muck and then look to play on from there. So a Coffer lead a little bit easier than a Hypno lead. An opposing Muck, again, that's another one where you can tank the Thunderbolt, because they will get to that before you can get to your Rock Slide. But you'll still want to throw that Rock Slide, and again, much like with Coffer either do massive damage, not likely that they shield. So you'll grab an early shield, and then you can come in with your own Muck. Reggie is the dedicated closer on this team here. What else do we have? Dragonair. That's another one where you'll want to chip and dip, or grab a shield and dip into your Muck. They will most likely shield up that cross chop you do outpace to the first move, but that's not one that you'll want to stay in there on. You'll want to come in with Muck. And depending on what they counter swap you with, I'm okay with giving up a shield if you can control the alignment, at the very least. So you just see what they bring in onto you. And if it's flippable, you can give up a shield to control alignment in this cup here, with Muck. Once you save swap Muck, that is. And what else? So yeah, the biggest problem is Hypno with this team. You just soft losing lead coming in with Reggie and looking to play on from there. You're not shielding, and it's not likely they'll throw a move anyways. They'll just confusing you all the way down. But you should make it to a Rock Slide. And at the very least, grab a shield or do big damage with that Rock Slide. So that is Team 4. We're basically protecting Machamp from those fairies, and we're just letting it do what it does best, and that is do massive damage. So that's Team 4. Shadow Machamp on the lead, Shadow Muck on the save swap, and Registeel in the back to close the game strong. And with all that said, that's Team 4. Let's have a look at Team number 5. All right, guys, last but certainly not least, we've got Team number 5. Another pretty solid team for the single type cup. It leads with Registeel on the lead, Hypno on the save swap, and Florges in the back to sweep the game for you. So we're basically protecting our Reggie lead from the fighters on the lead. Reggie will address the Charmers on the lead and the Mucks that we see on the lead as well. So pretty solid team here. Let's have a look at the scorecard. Not bad. Very solid. Very strong scorecard here for Team 5. We've got a B for coverage, A for bulk, C for safety, and a B for consistency. Not bad at all. Very solid. And Reggie on the lead is actually very interesting. This will probably be sort of a late stage team that you can run as the meta settles in a little bit. We'll start seeing a lot less fighters on the lead and a lot more counters to the fighters on the lead. That mostly being the poisons and the fairies. So this is a team to really consider, as you will dominate the poisons and fairies on the lead. But we do still have two amazing fighting type answers in the back. Both these Pokemon handle the fighters and pseudo fighters in the meta. So if you're met with one of those, you're going to go into Hypno and likely draw out, you want to draw out a Steel type. If they have their own Registeel or even a Berserker or something like that, you want to draw that out with Hypno because you do have Fire Punch and you can fight back to an extent. It's not a winning matchup, but your goal is to draw it out so that Reggie can come back in and try its very best to take it out. Preserving shields for Florges to sweep the game. That's how the team is designed. So yeah, all fighters. Did want to address Lurantis. They're going to either play that one of two ways. They could immediately throw the superpower and then give you switch advantage. That's good for you because you do tank that superpower and you get to control the alignment. So that's the best case scenario. It gets a little dicey if they try to build all the way up to the back-to-back. At the very least there, you'll grab a shield from that Florges. But yeah, if you can grab that early shield, because again, the idea with this team is to save the shield advantage for Florges to sweep. Florges can be quite the sweeper, even in the Great League format. So that's how I would address Lurantis. Meganium, it says you have a narrow loss here, but we're looking at the average between the 0s and 1s. And the 2s, you do beat Meganium. You just have to be careful of the Earthquake. And if things go awry, your 2 Pokemon in the back with a shield advantage can handle that Meganium, no problem. Perhaps you could play out the 1s even, because you will want to check for a Steel type if they do have one, because Reggie's going to be your best Steel type answer. So you could play out the 1s. That's the safest way to play that. If you're really good, you will catch their move onto your Hypno. But yeah, the safest play out the 1s and look to make a play into Hypno. Cofagrigus, that's a team effort. You can't have Hypno anywhere near that Cofagrigus. The best thing to do is just play out the 0s, because a Cofagrigus lead is most likely going to have 2 fighters or a fighter and a pseudo fighter, or any combination, a counter user basically. Cofagrigus is going to have a counter user, because the counter users are going to protect Cofagrigus from the Pokemon that it is most weak to, and that being the normal types as well as an Umbreon. So that's one where you can actually just stay in there, soft lose lead on. At the very least, you will grab a shield advantage, then you can align Florges onto that Cofagrigus. Hypno can handle it at a health advantage as well. So that's how I would play Cofagrigus. You are core broken by a Ninetales, a Kanto Ninetales. That one's going to be very tricky, but that's another one where you just have to soft lose lead, grab a shield advantage, and try and get your Hypno locked onto that thing and see what comes of that. That's how I would play A9, or K9, I should say. But everything else in between is pretty straightforward here with Team 5. Again, sort of a late stage team as the meta settles in. There are going to be a lot of fighting type leads at the very start, first couple of days or so of this cup. So once the meta settles a little bit, you'll start seeing counters to those fighting type leads, and then this team will be an ideal candidate for you to consider. But you can play it right out of the gate as well. You've got optimal coverage for those fighters and pseudo fighters for Registeel in the back here. So that about wraps it up, guys, for my top 5 best teams for the single type cup. Should be fun. It'll be a nice change of pace from the Open Ultra League, which it will be running alongside. The brand new single type cup is set to drop tomorrow at the time leagues typically reset at the time of recording this video. And again, I'm pretty excited for it. Should be a lot of fun. But guys, I had a blast. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I thank you for watching and keep up the grind. Thank you, guys.